Hi, it's Alex from Groovy Entertainment. Today we got another book to read to you. Today's book is The Tale of Peter Rabbit from 1902. So let's get started. Once upon a time, there was four little rabbits, and their names was Floppy, Moppy, Cottontail, and Peter. They lived with their mother in a sandbank underneath the roots of a very big fir tree. "Now, my dears," said old Mrs. Rabbit, one morning, you may go into the fields or down the lane, but don't go into Mr. McGarrett's garden. Your father had an accident there. He would put in a pie by Mrs. McGarrett. Now run along and don't get into mischief. I am going out." Then old Mrs. Rabbit took a basket and her umbrella and went through the forest. No, went through the woods to the baker's. She bought a loaf of brown bread and 5 currant buns. Floppy, Moppy, and Cottontail, who was good little bunnies, went down the lane to gather blackberries. But Peter, who was very naughty, ran straight away to Mr. McGarrett's garden and squeezed under the gate. First, he ate some lettuce and some French beans, and then ate some relish. And then, felt rather sick. He went to look for some parsley, but round the end of the cucumber, fame who should be met but Mr. McGarrett. Mr. McGarrett was on his hands and knees planting out some young cabbage, but he jumped up and ran after Peter, waving a rake and calling out, "Stop, thief!" Peter was most doubtful, frightened. He rushed all over the garden, for he had forgotten the way back to the gate. He lost one of his shoes amongst the cabbage and the other amongst the potatoes. After losing them, he ran on 4 legs and went faster, so that I think he might have gotten away altogether if he hadn't not unfortunately ran into a gooseberry net, and got caught by the large button on his jacket. It was a blue jacket with brass buttons, quite new. Peter gave himself up. Peter gave himself up for loss and shed big tears, but his sob was overheard by some friendly sparrow who flew to him in a great excitement and froze him to excite him. Mr. McGarrett came up with a which he intended to pop up on the top of Peter, but Peter wiggles out just in time, leaving his jacket behind, and rushed into the tool shed and jumped into a can. It would have been a beautiful thing to hide in if it had not had so much water in it. McGarrett was quite sure that Peter was somewhere in the tool shed, perhaps hiding underneath a flower pot. He began to turn them over carefully, looking under each. Presently, Peter squeezed. Oh, Mr. McGarrett was after him in no time, and tried to put his foot up on Peter, who jumped out of the window, upsetting three plants. The window was too small for McGarrett, and he was tired of running after Peter. He went back to his work. Peter sat down to rest. He was out of breath and trembling with fright. He had not he had not the least idea which way to go, and also he was very damp with sitting in that can. After a time, he began to wonder about going not very fast and looking all around. He found a door in the wall, but it was locked, and there was no room for a fat little rabbit to squeeze underneath. An old mouse was running in and out over the stone door step, carrying peas and beans to her family in the woods. Peter asked her the way to the gate, but she had such a large pea in her mouth that she could not answer. She only shook her head at him. Peter began to cry. Then he tried to find his way straight across the garden, but he became more and more puzzled, and presently he came to a pond where Mr. McGarrett filled his water cans. A white cat was staring at staring at some goldfish. She sat very, very still, but now and then the tip of her tail twitched as it was alive. Peter thought it was best to go away without speaking to her. He had heard about cats from his cousin little Benjamin Bunny. He went back toward the tool shed, but suddenly, quite close to him, he heard the noise of a hoe scratching. Peter scattered underneath the bushes, but presently, as nothing happened, he came out and climbed up a wheelbarrow and peeked over. The first thing he saw was Mr. McGarrett hoeing onions. His back was turned toward Peter, and beyond him was the gate. Peter got down very quietly off the wheelbarrow and started running as fast as he could go along a straight walk behind some black currant bushes. Mr. McGarrett caught sight of him at the corner, but Peter did not care. He slipped underneath the gate and was safe at last in the woods outside the garden. Mr. McGarrett hung up the little jacket and shoes for Scarecrow to frighten the blackbirds. Peter never stopped running or looked behind him till he got home to the big fir tree. He was so tired that he flopped down up on the nice soft sand on the floor of the rabbit hole and shut his eyes. His mother was busy cooking. She wondered what he had done with his clothes. It was the second little jacket and pair of shoes that Peter had lost in a fortnight. I am sorry to say that Peter was not very well during the evening. His mother put him to bed and made some caramel tea, and she gave a dose of it to Peter, one spoonful to be taken at bedtime. But Floppy, Moppy, and Cottontail had bread and milk and blueberries for supper. The end. So that was the tale of Peter Rabbit from 1902. So if you like, subscribe, share, and comment, and have a groovy day. We have another video coming out real soon.